Hello, welcome to this session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in Information and Communication Technology, or ICT. My name is Sabrina Otness, and today I am delighted to be highlighting International Girls in ICT Day 2021. I will be having a discussion about tech and tech careers with Isabelle Mauro, Director of the Telecommunications and Digital Communication Industry at the World Economic Forum. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. The objectives of Girls in ICT Day are to help to create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the growing field of information and communication technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and is in support of Equals, the global partnership for gender equality in the digital age. Through the organization, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Isabelle Mauro, who's not only an inspiration because of her remarkable career, but also because of her desire to advocate for future generations of women in tech through initiatives like this one. Now, let me introduce you to Isabelle Mauro, Director of the Telecommunications and Digital Communication Industry at the World Economic Forum. Isabelle, it's great to be with you again today. I'd like to start somewhere toward the beginning of your journey in tech. I'm curious, what was the moment where you knew a career in tech was what you wanted?
Thank you, Sabrina, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful initiative. And yeah, that is a very interesting question. When did I realize? I don't think there was ever a moment when I knew I wanted a career in tech. Just because my background is not in tech, really. I studied policy and politics. And so I landed in tech by chance, rather than choosing it as a path or a career from earlier on. But if there is a kind of a lamp bulb moment, I'd say it is, back in 2003 or 4, I think my early days, at the GSMA where I worked at the time, I went to Bangladesh and visited what was called the Village Ladies Initiative with one of the mobile operators on, in Bangladesh on the ground. And this was about putting a phone in the hands of ladies in a village, and empowering men and women in the whole village to use the phone, but also to be able to check the crops, have access online to like courses and universities or schools, financial services. And I think it was probably at that moment that I realized, how powerful tech tools could be in really changing people's life. And one of the things I remember with a translator that this lady said that not only, it had empowered all the villagers, if you want, around her, but also with the money she was making out of this business of renting her phone, if you want, she was able to send her daughters to university. And that for me was really the moment where I thought, yeah, actually, I'm not just doing tech, something dry, and it's really helping, empowering people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so incredible. When we had that conversation the other day, I think that was kind of another light bulb for me, because that's very similar to why I, want to pursue tech as well. Okay, so I'd also like to know if you could share an example or two of things you've done in tech that you are particularly proud of, aside of that incredible example already.
Yeah, so I think maybe a couple of things from both my, so I worked at the GSMA, which is the Mobile Trade or Industry Association for the wireless industry for a long time, for 15 years. And what we did, so the GSMA hosts the Mobile World Congress, which is the largest, if you want, telecom event probably in the world, with 140,000 plus participants every year in Spain, in Barcelona. And at a very early stage of this Congress, I think in 2006, we invited 2 ministers to the program because we thought, hey, we have all this industry, all these CEOs. Why don't we also invite, a couple of ministers to speak to them and try to shape policies? And that gave form to a program which was called the Ministerial Program, a Ministerial Summit, within the Mobile World Congress. Within this massive event, we created this program, which was basically bringing governments, regulators to the program and starting to, this dialogue, enhancing this dialogue between public and private sector. And we grew it from 2006 to 2015, when I left the GSMA, to 2 governments, to 140 governments from around the world coming to attend this meeting. And this, in a way, was truly, my baby. And then when I left the GSMA, it felt like I was giving a child, to adoption.
Sure,
and
yeah.
so I was really proud of that, because it really shaped the dialogue and increased the dialogue, which was so needed between public and private sector. And the second thing is something we launched, an initiative we launched last week, 10 days ago, during Davos Week at the World Economic Forum, which is called the Edison Alliance. And it's really, like the Edison Alliance, it's really about increasing digital inclusion, but bringing it as well to increase healthcare access to the 2 billion of people that don't have access to healthcare in the world through connectivity. Increase education to the 250 children plus that do not have access to education through online and education. And same thing for financial services. So in the first year, we are going to really focus on these 3 areas. How do you, by connecting people to to a digital device, how do you increase healthcare, education, and financial services? And beyond that, every year, it's a multi-year initiative. Every year, we will really focus on at least 3 of the SDGs and see how the power of connectivity can help increase, and achieve the SDGs.
Wow. I mean, what can I even say after that? It's I'm really excited to see where that goes. I mean, we could check in about that later too. Also, could you tell us a bit about your path to becoming the director of telecommunications and the digital communication industry? Were there specific steps you took to get there, or did it kind of develop naturally in your career?
Yeah, I think it developed quite natural. Well, maybe the not natural path was that when I finished my studies on politics and policy, I went to Brussels to do an internship at the European Commission, which had nothing to do with tech. It was in organized crime, which I had written a dissertation on. So absolutely no, background in tech. But I then went on to take my first job in a public policy and public affairs consultancy, UPCO in Europe. And there, very clearly from an early stage, I started, working in the practice that was dealing with communications and telecoms and technology industry. And so my portfolio of clients became in that area. And I think that's really set the trend, if you want, for my career. My career developed in technology and telecoms. My biggest project there was a campaign for mobile operators in the UK. And it was about investors in mobile and what was needed to sort of enable greater investments, in mobile technology. And that led me to the job at the GSMA, where I stayed for 15 years, so quite for a long time. I first worked in Europe. I opened the office in Europe, and then we expanded globally, the policy team. And then after 15 years, I just felt I needed something new. And I wanted to take my knowledge of telecoms to a broader ecosystem of mobile, and so I thought the Economic Forum, I had the opportunity to move to the Economic Forum, and that was a great segue, because now it was about, okay, how can technology help the energy sector, the healthcare sectors, retail, and all of the other, sectors of the economy. So I think it was a very natural path, although I had initially absolutely zero background, in technology when I landed on the work market, if you want.
Yeah. Okay. This is something I've been thinking more about too, and we discussed this the other day. The fourth revolution, or the fourth industrial revolution, and this is a concept I've heard come up more and more over the past year in particular. And it's something that's been on my mind as somebody wanting to enter into the field of tech, and also simply as a citizen hoping to prepare for these changes in our lives. Could you talk a bit about the ways in which you see the fourth industrial revolution changing the industry and how aspiring women in tech can prepare for these kinds of shifts?
Yes, I think we have, if you think the third, well, there was the first and second, industrial revolution, but the third industrial revolution is often referred to as either the sort of computer revolution or the digital revolution. Its contribution were more with the advent of the of computers. You all of a sudden had all these semiconductors and the internet, right, which was developed in the later half of the 20th century. But what we're currently experiencing in what we now call the fourth industrial revolution is really about a more mobile internet and cheaper and smaller devices and sensors that are really enabling the development of a total new generation of technologies, which is also evolving much more quickly. Between I just did 2G, 3G, 4G, the evolution is becoming like sort of quicker and quicker amongst all of this. But you also add to that now AI, machine learning, robotics. So this is the fourth industrial revolution. It's no longer about just technology, but it's really technology, how it merges with other fields in energy, in biology, physics, and also how it's really now transforming with IoT and other such things. It's really transforming all the other sectors of the economy. So it's no longer the fourth industrial revolution for me in one word. It's no longer about technology. It's about technology changing, helping digitally transform all of our industry of the economy.
And yeah, I guess I see it as an opportunity, and also it might kind of create more of a divide in terms of the education gap and all these different kinds of gaps that we see between genders. Do you think there are ways that we could prepare for it more, maybe through education, or do you have any ideas on that too?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And we've seen it during COVID, right? So I think the digital transformation during COVID leapfrogged by 7 years, in general. That's accepted now that, in 10 months, we did the progress that was expected to be made in the next 7 years. So this in itself has brought amazing opportunity for so many people. But also it has really exacerbated the digital divide because we still have 3.7 billion people not online. And those are the ones that could not study, that could not work, that could not talk to their families, that could not just participate in the economy or in society, right, due to that. So I think we really have a risk here with that kind of acceleration of digital transformation, that those who were behind may remain further behind. And that's why I believe like we are really at an inception point, and there's never been such a sense of urgency as there is today in terms of bridging the digital divide. And the reason why it's so important as well for, intersectionality and for gender and others is that, of course, during COVID, the most vulnerable populations or segments of the population were the most affected. So if you were a Black female in America, you were much more affected than a white male. Economically, socially, in any kind, health-wise, you didn't have access to healthcare, in the same way of others. So it's absolutely critical that at this stage, this becomes a priority for all governments. We need to provide, connectivity and online services to sort of the 25% or more, that 30% that are still not connected to the internet, or that could be connected, but it's not affordable, or they don't know how to use it. Because, there is also this misconception. It's not just about the accessibility. Having access to the service is also being able to afford the service, or being, know how to use the services, right? So that is really important. Yeah. But to your question, just to finish on the gender here, I think it's not just about tech. It's also, because if you look at Africa, for instance, I think 37% of male have access to the internet against 20% of female. That's really a big gap. In Europe, it's, I think, 85 for male and 85 for 80 for female percent. So just to give you an example of the ratio here, So that is really important to close that gap. But I think what is also important is over policies, because there are still 40% of girls and women that live in countries that are failing on gender parity and gender equality. You know, we do not have the measures in place to address gender equality. So you can do as much tech as you want. If that's, you know, if that gap still persists as well, that needs to be addressed. And I think another way where we can address it as well is by, it's not just about girls studying STEM. It's about girls having in their hand a computer at a very early stage in a school, so that that girl, if, you know, she may become a wonderful, you know, executive and have this great career in STEM, but she also may be, you know, working in policy or be a lawyer and working in tech all the same. You know, just my example, right? I never studied tech or STEM. I studied policy and politics, and I still ended up in tech and still have a good job in tech. And it's also about empowering, because I always, I don't like just this focus on executives and top jobs.
Yeah.
The jobs are all the range. And by empowering a girl to have a computer at a very early stage, this girl could also be have an administrative position in retail, in an office, you know, in a dentist, I mean, wherever. But will need the technological skills, you know, will need to know how to use a computer in order to have that job. And so I think
Mhm.
it's all, you know, it's all, these all range can truly empower women and girls.
I think it's so important because it's such an opportunity. And I'm really excited to see what happens, but definitely keeping that mindfulness of needing the policy behind it is, I think, almost more important than the technology itself. And I guess you were just talking about leadership, so this is a good segue as well. In grad school, so I'm going to Columbia University right now, and I've noticed there's a particular emphasis on leadership. And I know society and culture value leadership a great deal. And I'm not someone who has experienced leading, and quite honestly enjoy working on a team and feel that's one of my strengths. So
Mm.
I'm curious to know how you've evolved as a leader, and if you have any advice to those beginning their careers on how to be more comfortable leading.
Yeah, it's, I think for me, leading is about respect. You know, you really need to respect everybody else's skills, abilities, but also be able to recognize their weaknesses and help them navigate through those weaknesses, and you know, slowly eliminate the weaknesses and use their enhance their stronger points. You know, so the stronger points in a team. So that, I think, yeah. So for a good leader is and I'm not referring to me, I'm just referring to what I think is a leader, you know, because I don't think I'm a particular big leader, but it's to be able to delegate. So learn how to, you know, first you need to identify in your team, if you have a team, what are the skills of everybody and where you are going to put those skills to the most use, you know, you can make the most use in the organization, and then have the ability to delegate to them. And truly empower people, because, you know, I don't believe in micromanagement. For me, from my very early days, uh, the initiatives, the projects, you know, the whatever I was given to do, where I could thrive the most was where I was given leeway and freedom to do what I was able to do. So that would be, yeah, that would be, I think, you know, one of the advices. Um, and find good mentors, no matter at what level of your career, because there will always be somebody above you. So, you know, I believe in that, but I also believe in two ways mentorship, because I have so much to learn from my team. Because they're younger generations, so it opens your mind in the way you can think. Um, and so I think it's really a two-way, you know, a two-way thing. A good leader needs to be able to listen, to look above and see what, you know, what sort of experience they can draw from that, but also to look at people that are reporting to them and learn from them, and learn, you know, and yeah, that would be my advice, I think.
I really like that. I think that's very helpful. Where to go next? Where do you see the work you're doing in tech impacting the world or people the most? I guess we kind of already touched on this, but if you'd like to
Yeah.
expand a little more.
Yeah, so I think both the places where I've worked, like the GSMA, it's an industry association, so right, the scope there, I think if you look at the impact that mobile has had in the world in the last 20 years, it's quite remarkable. I don't think there is anything like that has had that impact. So to have been part of that, in a way, of that journey, I remember when I started at the GSMA, I started in 2000. That was the first time I had a handphone in my hands. It was the little flick that you would flip, and the Nokia.
I miss those. I think those need to come back.
You're probably not even aware of all that. So that was already a big step. But to have seen the evolution of that, and what, just like the Bangladesh lady was just an example. But I've traveled to so many countries where you see first thing hands, like really the power of that tool in the hands of people. And then as we have evolved with data and smartphones, all the things that we can do here, like, in the Western world, but also as we evolve and hopefully are able to give access to these services as well, to most of the countries, that is truly remarkable. So my little share of that, being just part of that journey, I think already has had a great impact, in the larger scheme. And then there are other things I think that you can get involved in that all helps. As for instance, I am on the board of a non-profit organization which is called Women in Tech, and there we really have the ambition to connect, empower 5 million women and girls in tech by 2030. So against the SDGs, and all of that is, for me, our way of, I hope we can make impact, in moving the needle a bit more quickly.
And what a big goal. I hope we get there. I think we could.
Yeah.
And so I guess to close, since this is a series about girls and women in technology, do you have any career or tech advice for girls and younger women hoping to join this field?
Yes, I think it's a bit of, just to recap what we discussed, right? It's working in tech does not mean just studying STEM. So don't narrow, the opportunity to only study STEMs. You can study law, you can study policy, marketing, comms, and still work in extremely wonderful communications companies or tech companies, right? You can land in either a telecom, or you could land in a Facebook and Google and Microsoft, Apple, anywhere. They don't have just engineers in those companies. So tech is not just about being an engineer or being able to code. So don't narrow, the sort of the opportunities to just that. The second thing is finding a mentor. I think that is helpful, or somebody that you really find as an inspiration. And again, don't narrow that to female and women. Like two of my greatest mentors were male, and one empowered me in a room full of CEOs in the Middle East, where I was dreading that meeting, and it was a very difficult conversation initiative we were sort of addressing. And my boss was a male in his late 50s, in a room full of males in their late 50s, CEOs, introduced me and said, okay, well, Isabelle is going to run you through how this is going to work, because this is her initiative and she's going to lead it. And I was just, and he hadn't even told me.
I was going to ask him, did you?
Oh, hold on a second. I'm ventilating, but that was, I think, the moment for me when I realized, wow, in French we say chapeau, like kudos to you to be able to step back with your ego and anything and just said, okay. And that has really empowered me for the 2 years that we did this very difficult campaign. Every time I went in, everybody respected me and never saw, and I never felt like, oh, I am the woman in the midst of all these male. And so I think you need to find mentors, male or female, that really empower you and give you this sort of drive and confidence to be able to shine is not the right word, but to have the to have the confidence to do brilliantly what you need to do and deliver. So
I really like that. I think that's great.
um, yeah. So I also have a few questions that I would like to ask you, if that's okay.
Definitely, sure.
Because so a little bit like you're studying public affairs and right international affairs. So how does that equate with technology? Like, why are you interested in technology, and what what do you like the most about technology that is sort of interesting you?
Yeah, I came into technology fairly recently, and for very similar reasons that you shared too. I like the angle of policy and communication. That's sort of my background and what I'm studying now. And before attending Columbia University, I was always really interested in anti-human trafficking efforts. That's always been kind of my goal after school, to find ways to short circuit that and help protect more women and children in particular. And you start your journey in education. There's all these classes, and I just decided to get outside of my comfort zone a little bit, and I took an AI policy class and a programming class, and I just realized very quickly that technology is the best way to make the greatest impact, at least in what I'm hoping to see and the changes I want to see in the world. So that's kind of what got me into it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting the human trafficking side of it, because when I did internship at the Commission, at the European Commission many moons ago, I was in the task force on organized crime, and that is something that we were also looking into human trafficking and child trafficking. And so for me, it would be so interesting what you're doing. How do you combine the power of technology in helping addressing such challenges? Because at the time, of course, it was the late 90s. The technology was still very limited in terms of data gathering. And sorry, I've gone off video. Yes, and so even in the terms we could gather the data, and so how do you are you thinking of doing something specifically in that way, merging the two, or?
I'm still deciding. I think that there is just so much work to be done, and it just seems like law enforcement is utilizing technology more in kind of stopping organized crime and trying to get ahead of these instances. So I guess I just wanted to see if there's more that we could do, and also in terms of AI policy, I've been thinking a lot about ethics in AI, and if we're really using the right tools at this time. And I just think there's a lot more studies that need to be done to effectively prosecute people that are doing these things. So I guess there's kind of the law component, and just wanting to see what other technologies we could develop and ways that we could strategize these issues more broadly, and coming up with more international solutions for them too. So I guess it's still pretty preliminary, but those were kind of questions in my mind of how we can improve things.
Yeah, we have a great team at the forum. We have a Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution in San Francisco, and one of the areas, and that is all about shaping innovative policies. So we work with governments, we do pilots in countries, and AI, ethics of AI is one of the big initiatives that we are doing. So you should definitely have a look into that as well, because there might be very good synergies. Yeah, yeah. And so, so what message would you have coming from your angle to girls and women in around the world that want to work in tech, or gear towards that direction?
A message I would give to them, I think the way that I've approached tech, and you have as well, is to really kind of focus on the questions that you're trying to address first, and then utilize tech as the tool later. I think that we both kind of were led into tech with the policy questions we have. So I guess I would I would encourage younger women to be open to that, and also more broadly, because well, I'm still young. I'm 27. I wanted to get into tech a little later, I would say. And so I would just, tell people that it's not too late and to not be intimidated by the field. I have been for so long, and just really finding your entry point is important. Yeah, and keeping the impact in mind as you're thinking of tech and what that can do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very good point, and very interesting. And one thing I'm curious is as well, because we discussed a little bit, the leadership versus that I think there's been so much focus with the lean in movement and all in it's all about becoming executives and big jobs, what I was saying before. And to me, that's just about that. You want to empower women at all levels of the workforce, I think, because that is true empowerment. So what can we do, having that in mind? Like, what do you think women like me who've been maybe in this sector for 20 years or for 10, or but what can we do to help these younger women that want to be in tech? Like, what do you think would be helpful for us to do and say, and that could truly make an impact on your younger generation as you are trying to navigate this tech world?
I think this alone has been so helpful for me, having, setting aside time and really meeting with a mentor, or just having these conversations about technology and asking, what are you interested in? What new ideas do you have? What kind of changes do you want to see? Kind of continuing to ask those questions, and really allowing women to have the chance to answer that, and develop it with somebody. Also, I think, yeah, just continued engagement is really important. And having these kinds of things, even in elementary school and beyond, like having counselors really check in with students would be great, because then you can have these ideas a lot sooner than maybe somebody like me, and start working toward your goals faster, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that's yeah, I like that. So I'll take that in to make sure that that's something we can apply. Yeah.
Well, with that, I just want to thank you so much, Isabelle, for your time today with me, and your willingness to share your ideas with all those that are watching today. I hope you all gained something positive from this discussion, and be well.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I just, to wrap up, maybe I just want to say a word to finish on the advice, like really follow your heart. I left school when I was 15, went back to university when I was 22, and still managed to go, to the London School of Economics, still managed to get a great job. And so follow your heart, follow your passion. And I think things will just unfold, and, find great mentors to guide you, and all will be good. All right. And thank you so much again. Thank you for this opportunity, and the ITU and Equals. And yes, it's a great job to do, and it's a fantastic way of starting the conversation and empowering other women. So thank you so much for the opportunity.